the American. It's all about the journey. This is our mission statement. And in addition to that, WDAA talks a lot about keeping aging horses sound, providing a home and work for horses from other industries that have burned out in other industries or have topped out in other industries, to provide safe riding mounts for all people of all ages, of all sizes, and all races in America, that we're inclusive of all people and we're inclusive of all horses. And that in doing that, we believe in doing that in the legacy and the culture of the good American West, of always kind of the John Wayne culture, do the right thing, take care of each other and take care of our horses. And that's what this journey is about, is learning about how to train our horses so that we have a wonderful, loving relationship and partnership with them, and that they remain sound and healthy and happy in the work that they do. A while ago, the training tree was put out there in this diagram form. I'm sorry, wheel. You can see my dressage background, because this theory of good horsemanship has been around forever, with all of these components that are listed on this wheel, and in dressage is referred to as a tree. But here we have it in a wheel shape, because we as Western dressage riders feel that the rider, or trainer, but riders, because we ride, and therefore you either train or untrain every time you ride, that it's the rider that's responsible for all of this work and attention to these elements that are part of the training. These spokes here within the wheel are the basis of how the work comes together. And the rider addresses this with their aids and with their training, and with the hope of reaching collection and the center of the wheel, which was lightness, throughness, and harmony. As you progress in your training with the horse, you address this wheel constantly. And so this wheel is one of those things that you want to be familiar with, and you're going to talk about with your trainer and your riding instructor. Judges refer to it constantly. Trainers talk to other trainers about it. And we refer to it constantly all the time as we are progressing in our work and in the riding that we do while competing. So what is it that this training reel actually does, and why does it matter, and how do you use it? Well, I don't know if you can probably all see, because you've all got color. Sometimes this is printed out in black and white and it's less clear, but this is light blue, a little darker blue, darker blue, darker blue, darker blue, dark, really dark blue, and gets to the center. But you start with the number one aspect of this. This spoke is your primary spoke to the right of noon. And it is rhythm, and that is the horse's gait. Rhythm is not, when we use it about horses, it's not about tempo, which is the timing, like music. Da, 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 da. It is not the timing of the gaits. It's not the speed of the gaits, but it is the sequence of the footfall. So the walk 4 beats, the jog 2 beats, the lope 3 beats, and the regularity of those. So it's the clarity of the footfall. Rhythm is very important, because it's like the idea of a doctor, do no harm, that the first thing that a rider or a trainer must do is not injure the horse. And this whole idea of training a horse is all about, can we train this horse so that it does not have repetitive injury disease? Horses were not born to carry riders. And so when we sit on them, they retrain themselves, and we ask them to retrain themselves to be in a more natural balance with our weight on top of them. In the correct posture, carrying themselves well, they develop strength and suppleness, they develop agility and talent in the right balance. And the idea that dressage part of this Western dressage is the theory that we can train the horse in the right posture during his various exercises so that he will increase strength, he will increase suppleness, he will increase his agility, and that they will remain sound and be able to carry our weight and to perform interesting and intricate movements with ease and with harmony in a relationship with us. So it's the idea of like, if I don't know anything about lifting weights, and if I went to the gym unsupervised and just began to lift weights, I would surely injure myself because I know nothing about this. And I would probably have repetitive injury disease because I would lift the weights improperly, not use the right posture, sort of like we know that we should keep our back straight while we lift a heavy object. So horses, because of their anatomy, learn to carry us and learn to carry weight. And we, over the centuries, have observed and studied their anatomy and learned how they should carry us properly and what are the best postures for them to work in. And horses don't always have great conformation, and they sometimes need to develop more strength in various areas. It's like people, we don't all have perfect posture and we don't have perfect anatomy. And so our job as riders and trainers are to evaluate our horses' strengths and weaknesses. And we use this wheel to look at their strengths and weaknesses. And the rider, who is the trainer, works with their aides and correct and effect training techniques and our own position and weight within the saddle. And we work within this training wheel in order to improve the horse. So rhythm is absolutely the most important thing. Do no harm. And if something happens that disturbs the horse's quality of its gaits, then you have to look at, what went wrong on these spokes that caused this. And the one other thing can be pain. Pain can affect a horse's gaits if they are going unsound. And that unsoundness can be connected to our work, or it can be connected to natural aging and illnesses. So as riders, we're always aware not only of the training of our horse, but of the care and the horsemanship of our horses. How are we caring for our horses and what is their health? The next one down here, which I think are probably our little pictures are covering it, but is suppleness, which is interesting because suppleness is also elasticity and relaxation. And you know a lot about horses. Y'all know that if a horse is emotionally so stressed that he can't pay attention to you, that he cannot take in the information that you're trying to train. You also know that when the horse is tense, that his muscles are tight, you're unable to work successfully. So rhythm, number one, do no harm. Be sure that the sequence of the footfalls for each gait is correct. And number two, are they emotionally relaxed where you are? Do they trust you? Are they harmonious with you? And then their own natural elasticity comes into this part of the training tree. Some horses have more elasticity and some horses have more natural suppleness. And we can actually use some of these other parts of the spokes to increase a horse's suppleness. And we are always working on their emotional relaxation so that they trust us and so that they're comfortable in the environments that we're asking them to be in. By the use of our aids and by being effective and correct riding and to be patient with the horse, all of this circle of the rider affects this horse's confidence and relaxation here. And so the rider is very important to this part of the horse. Connection is down here, and we talk about self-carriage through the acceptance of aids. And people say to me, wow, in dressage, when you get to this part of the training tree or on this spoke, if you were putting in the dressage words, it would say contact here. And on the dressage training tree, it says contact. But in many respects, this is similar. And the reason that we chose the word connection is because we allow our horses to be ridden in a bosal, in a bitless bridle. We allow horses to be ridden in curbs and in snaffles. And there are many horses that are in what is traditional dressage self-carriage, where the horse is round in the bridle, soft to the connection, but is not pushed onto the bridle. If you ride in a snaffle, your horse may stretch into connection and you may have contact, but you might also ride in a spade bit, which you might be a very advanced rider at a very high level. And those horses are softly just inside of the bridle and still in a correct connection for Western dressage. Connection allows for the horse and talks about and encourages traditional self-carriage, where the horses are asked to stretch towards the aid, asked to stretch towards the hand, confident of reaching forward towards their rider, active from behind, but they may be in contact because they might be ridden in a more of an English connection in that they're in a snaffle, maybe like a loose ring snaffle, and they're ridden into a light connection, or they might be in a curve where they're very soft in the bits, but they're still in the correct balance. They're soft in the bridle. They're reaching forward. They're thinking forward, but they're active behind and carrying weight. So the word connection for us talks about this posture that we're talking about. Sometimes your papers are going to say, horse not round enough to the hand, horse not soft to the hand. In dressage terms, sometimes people get papers that say, not on the bit. Some of our tests say on the bit or round to the hand or in self-carriage because we don't know which combination of bit you're going to be using. And since many horses' conformation affect their, shall we say, frame, their posture, and also the level of the horse's work and his conformation, and each individual selection of tack affects where a horse is in its development of its uphill self-carriage and its posture. So connection is our way of saying on the bit, on the aids, round, we often say round to the connection. So connection. Impulsion is the energy and the push of the horse against the ground. And sometimes when I'm speaking to men, I say, hey, it's the RPMs. It's the energy, it's the power against the ground. And that impulsion can be used up or it can propel forward. Impulsion also implies suspension because impulsion is power. We're in a gait where there is suspension. So that would be the jog, the lope. When we're talking about the walk, at that point, there's always a foot against the ground. And so the power is against the ground and one foot's always on the ground. And so when we talk about the walk, judges use the words energy, activity. They don't always use the words impulsion because impulsion does have an aspect of suspension in it. But here on this tree or wheel, it's talking about, this spoke right here is talking about the power against the ground that propels a horse up or forward or a combination of both. You know, a horse's movement can be more like this or like this. So it's forward or up or or a combination of forward and up. Once you have impulsion and you have connection of some kind, you can begin through steering, because if the horse will accept the aids of the bit, bridle, hand, seat, and leg, which is in this connection part, and you have the ability to move forward with energy and power, now you're going somewhere, because now you can propel the horse somewhere. And so straightness and steering alignment becomes important. When you have a lot of energy and it's from behind, then the straightness becomes important, because the hind legs have to track behind the forelegs except for in lateral movements. And this propulsion also makes spring in the hind legs and compression of the hind legs, bascule of the back, and connection to the hand. When all of that happens, you have the ability with connection and impulsion to begin to straighten a horse, but also to bend a horse. Straightening and bend are two sides of the same coin, which you're working on all the time. And even in intro, you're trying to get down the center line straight, make good corners, make round circles. So as soon as you have the ability to steer and connect with the horse with the aids and forward energy, you begin steering, straightening, bending, and then, of course, lateral work begins in level 2. When all of this happens, and it takes all of these spokes, you have collection. And I talk to people about collection as being a compression of controlled energy like an engine. Because what you have is an acceptance of the aids, which allows you to tell the horse what frame you need that horse in, with the next part, which is to tell the engine how much energy forward or up and down or backwards that you need in any direction. And you can control it by bending it or keeping it straight, which will cause all of this to compress. And when you have that, you have collection, which is lightness of the forehand and engagement of the hindquarters. And people are always like, what, this word engagement, we all know what that means. But engagement is, those of you that know the jumper's bump on the top of the horse, the SI, the hips, the stifles, the hocks, and the fetlocks take weight behind and they compress. And that's happening while the horse pushes and jumps and pushes impulsion through this. And that compression of the hind leg bending and stepping under the body, that's engagement. And when you see a horse push, but its hind legs are straight and the hind legs go out behind him, then not, because he didn't compress his legs, he didn't flex his SI and his hips and his joints and take the weight down onto his hind legs. He pushed his hind legs out behind him, which means that he pushed himself onto his forehand. So he's not uphill, he's not light, and he's hard to control. So this whole wheel is all about this posture for each level, that we're constantly trying to keep the horse in a correct posture as we progress his work. And that posture is necessary, just like it is a good dancer, a good, like a ballet dancer. If they don't have the correct posture while they're dancing, they will injure themselves. The more correct their posture is, and the better the set of exercises are their dance instructors ask them for, the more supple and the more light and the more harmonious they begin to look, and it begins to look like a dance. Why do we do this? Well, I'm sure you're all detail orientated. You can tell I am. And so we're interested in this. It's fascinating. And you can connect this to training level or intro. Like, you're in intro and you're like, well, I can only walk and trot, but I'm paying attention to that my horse's jog is really good. I'm paying attention to the relaxed in the show ring. I know that I have to keep connected with his mouth so I can steer. I'm thinking about energy as I enter the ring and I go down the center line and I'm working on straightness. Wow, I'm only at intro and I've got all 5 of those things going on. That's seriously cool, you know? And the level 5 riders have got all of this going on. Plus, they're doing some intricate movements that we see, those half passes and shoulder ins and tiny circles. And their horses become more and more uphill, and we see the collection coming. And we see the difference, like in flying changes, where when they first begin their flying changes, they're very flat to the ground. They're very pretty, they're nice and clean, but they're very flat to the ground. And the more collected a horse comes in the flying changes, the changes get more uphill and they have more flight through the change and they cover more ground and they're more uphill and ground covering as the horse develops from like level 4 flying changes to level 5 flying changes. Like changes occur because their bodies are changing, they're developing more muscle, they take more weight behind. So it's fascinating. Okay, we're at the point where we can take questions and comments. What's Dana up to? Has she been looking at the chat? We're going to take a break from all this theory for a minute. We're just going to chat for a minute. And
Yeah,
then
I don't have any questions in my chat right now. Let me see. Nope. Does anybody have questions?
As we were talking about, and send your questions to Dana and I'll keep chatting for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The hub, which is the center of the wheel, is the ultimate goal. And the spokes represent the basic elements of the training and the connection to the hub. The rim holds all the elements of the training together, and the rider is the representative that ensures that all of the spokes are developed equally. And your focus all the time within your training is start with rhythm. Is the horse relaxed enough to pay attention to me? Am I safe when I get on? It's the idea of, hey, am I safe? If I'm not safe, I'm not getting on. I got to go down and get down and do some hand work. And I have to do some in-hand work and might have to lunge him. And I got to get him more with me. I got to have a relationship with him. And then, okay, then I can get back up. And then how's my connection? Can I steer? Am I okay? And then can I go forward? Am I active? Can I steer? Then comes, okay, once I can go forward and I can steer, then I can begin to straighten and I can begin to do circles and then I can begin to do some shoulder in. And then as you progress through all of this, you come around to collection and then you realize you're all the way back to the beginning again. And if anything disturbs one of those elements, you go back to that list of elements and you look over what's going wrong here. And I start right at the front. I go, okay, is there anything wrong with the horse's rhythm? Check mark. Yes, no. Good. I'm good. I'm good. Okay. Is he relaxed? Is he relaxed? Does he feel tense? Is he looking at the bushes in the corner? The bunny rabbit's over there. She's shying from the bunny. Okay. I got to take some time and go over and school the corner of the ring. I might have to stand there. I might have to get down. I might have to lead her around in the bushes. I might have to feed her cookies on the bunny corner of the arena. Whatever it is I'm going to do to get her attention. I might have to do some get down and do some halter work with lower your head, pay attention to me. If I feel safe enough, I can circle in the corner. But whatever I got to do to get her to pay attention to me, relax. And right through the spokes of the wheel every day as you train, going from spoke to spoke to spoke until you feel like you keep addressing the spokes again, and you keep coming back around to what your concerns are so that you can make progress. These are all slides about the spokes that we were talking about, and we have put them in here for people that are going to read about this afterwards, because we know we have some people that can't join us tonight. But one of the things that we want to talk about is that the longer your horse will have longer, more useful lives, the more well-trained they are. And the we're hoping, and Western Dressage has so many horses that have come in from other divisions, and our careful training of them elongates their lives and gives them something useful to do. And amazingly enough, we are finding that other divisions are coming to us looking for Western Dressage horses to purchase because they're looking for safe, rideable, harmonious, happy horses that they feel safe on. So the training wheel was developed for us to use every day, and judges do use it every day. You know, what are the benefits of Western dressage? Well, it's dressage type of training in Western tack. Um, it's the art of riding and training a horse so that it's obedient and flexible, that it's in balance, and that you have a partnership with your horse. And we're always looking for harmony. At the bottom of the test, on our test, it says harmony. In dressage tests, classical English dressage test, it says submission. There, the difference for us is that we're looking for our horses and riders to be a partnership. We are looking for these horses to look like they're easier to ride. Our mission statement does not say that our goal is to go to the Olympics. It says that our goal is to extend the life of our horses and for us to feel safe and for any horse at any level to look like somebody else could ride it. How many of you have seen dressage horses that were amazing? I wouldn't get on them. I'm like, I know, I don't want to get on that. I'm not sure I'd be safe. So we want our horses to look like someone else could sit on them. And maybe they're not going to do the high level work that that rider is doing, but that they are safe enough to enjoy. And we are looking for horses that do something else. And almost all of it, we have taken some amazing surveys. And our surveys show in Western Dressage that almost all of our horses do Western Dressage. Our Western Dressage horses are showing actively, and they clearly do something else. And they're being shown or competed or recreationally doing something else at fairly aggressive, fairly high levels. We have a lot of ranch horses that are very successful in ranch doing Western Dressage. We have some amazing working eck riders that are doing Western eck and doing this. We have international agility people that are at very high levels doing Western Dressage. It just goes on and on. There's a ton of horses being cross-shown between traditional dressage and Western dressage very successfully. So our horses are amazingly rideable, and they're rideable in other divisions, which is wow, super cool. That's what we're about. That's why we're here, and we're hoping that you're here. For those of you that are really neophytes and just beginning, we grabbed this off the WDAA website, and this is support to last time's call. But this is about creating an arena or getting your sizes right and your letters right. And it'll be there for you to look at later because Dana's saving all of this and it will be posted and you can get at it. And as I said, it's in the learning management system also. So you can get to this. But if you want to do some showing online and you're going to go out and mow the front yard and put down some letters, a ton of people ride on grass on the Online International. It's great. They look good. They're doing well. There's one very famous level 5 rider that's on grass all the time, and she's winning. She's amazing. Some of you know Joanne Williams. It's amazing. I'm always looking at her test going, wow, she's out in the field. It's incredible. And so you can make your own ring. And these are the dimensions and how the letters are and how to get it square and things to think about when you're doing that, which is just part of our background part of this is that we want you in there. We want you to go to live shows. We want to support you on online shows, and we're looking for you to do this. And if you need help, we're here to help. And a lot of this information is on those websites to help you get going. And one of the things that's most important is if you are showing online that the ring is the right width, and the judges really have to be able to see the letters. So even if it's something really loud like orange road cones, it's something highly visible that you want to have there. And so look at the dimensions and how to set it up if you didn't already know how to do that. So anyway, how are we going on the chat, Dana?
I don't have any questions.
Questions so far?
Yeah, but we do have time if anyone can't access the chat and wanted to come off of mute to ask their questions, we can do that because we do have time.
Great. What we have been talking about is the training wheel and about the idea that the horses are going to progress in the right balance or posture or frame. And I think in English dressage, they're very good about saying, hey, the horse has to be on the bit. We're a little bit more euphemistic, and we're talking about connection. But in reality, that's about the horse's balance and being in the right connection. One of the things that has to happen for us as we train is that a lot of horses do not use their thoracic area quite enough. Like for people, it's about our core. And people talk to us all the time about our posture and about riding and about lifting. Use your core muscles, stand up straight, use your core muscles, sit up on the horse, use your core muscles. You want to pick up something heavy, keep your back straight, use your core muscles in your knees and your thighs, and get the weight correctly balanced. For a horse, it's the same thing, that they're carrying us. They're not used to it. They weren't born to do this. They have to be trained to be kept in the right position. And that's our job, is to encourage them to be in the right position to carry the weight properly. As well as taking weight behind, they have to engage their thoracic. And the thoracic, basically, if you think about it, they're going to use their head and their neck as a balancing rod. And they're going to lift what is really the base of the neck and raise the withers. So, their chest, their withers, that's the thoracic area. And they're going to lift that. And that is going to make you feel like, as you ride them, that they lift the saddle. And they take some more weight behind. The more weight, the more that they lift their thoracic. And that makes you feel like the front of the saddle comes up. When that happens, they're able to engage more and their back swings more. And that becomes when the jog is softer to sit to and the lope feels better and you can slow it down and you have more control all the time. And these are the postures that we're looking for that eventually become the collection in the higher levels that everyone is reaching towards. So this is the beginning of this. And this is why we begin, people are like, well, they keep talking about this in connection or on the bit stuff. It's not so much about the bit. And although it looks like head setting, and we've all been around the block, we've seen saddle horses and we've seen race horses with overchecks on, like standardbreds, and we've seen driving horses, with vertical heads and overchecks and things. Okay, they've got a headset on, but it's not just the neck position, but it's the neck position as the horse uses its thoracic and carries the weight behind so that the back is usable. And as a whole, the whole system of the body of the horse is in the right frame to correctly move forward or to bend and to carry the weight at whatever speed and whatever exercise you're asking it to do, which is kind of interesting because in each one of these tests, which we're going to talk about next time, we are actually going to talk about what does the posture look like for each level? What am I looking for? And why does it look so different? Maybe a Frisian looks really different in intro from a quarter horse. And why is that? And that is what we're going to talk about on the next call, because next time we're going to talk about intro and basic. And I think those can be really confusing for people when they step up to the rail. And we have, I think they said we had something like 60 breeds at Whirls. And it was just horse after horse after horse of different conformation. They move differently. And people were like, wow, okay, that's level fill in the blank. It might be like level 1. Okay, there's 10 level 1 horses. And they were doing the test, and they looked like they were harmonious to the bridle, and they were doing everything. They look quite different because they're like different breeds of dogs. They have different conformation, and that means that they move a little bit differently. And how is it that those judges figure out, is this okay for this horse at level 1? And why does that quarter horse look different from this Frisian? And that's still okay. They both got 70s. How is that okay? We're going to talk about that next time. So, and it has to do with this, with the training wheel. And that's why we were going over it today. So, any stories left for us about in the chat section, Dana? And does anybody have any questions? I thought you had a question, Dana.
Yeah. So, I mean, in our chat section, people just appreciate all this information, and you did a great job explaining the training wheel. I thought so too. I don't have any questions in here. Does anyone want to come off a mute if you're not able to use the chat box to ask a question?
I see some happy faces out there.
Can you hear me, Dana?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Hey,
great.
Tammy.
Yeah. When I first joined, we couldn't have the audio. We couldn't hear you. We could see you guys talking.
Oh,
We figured that out, and then I figured out how to unmute it. But I wanted to say that I totally appreciate Ida's explanation of the training wheel. And when we were at the World Show, when she was coaching me through my warm up, I felt like we were covering all those elements. She was, as she was watching my horse, and she would ask me, how is he feeling physically, mentally? She was asking for feedback on him too. And now that I really look at that explanation of the training wheel, I feel like that was kind of like her checklist that we were going down with that. And this really kind of tied that all in for me.
That's right, because I was not used, especially for a timber, I'm really used to, but for T-Rex, I hadn't seen T-Rex too many times, and and he's 4, and he was adorable. He was wonderful at Whirls for you, Tammy. But I would say to Tammy, okay, how does he feel? Because I wouldn't know when she got on him. Does he feel stiff today? Does he feel emotionally like tired, tight?
Right.
And box, that's the second one. How is he on suppleness, emotional relaxation? How much energy do you have? That's on that second spoke there. Really, like, how is he? Is he with you? Is his mind with you? And then we would go right down through, okay, is he will he take the half halt? If you ask him to lower his neck for the stretch circle, is he gonna lower his neck? Or, oh no, he's 4 years old, he's too looky.
Right,
Not
exactly.
not with us. And then we would go on, and I would say to her, okay, but you can't get the connection today, so you're gonna have to go for the energy. Because judge at intro, they don't have a lot of things to judge at that level. So they have big movements, but they don't have a lot of details in those tests. So I said to Tammy, he's a little looky today, and his connection isn't, he's inattentive, and he's kind of looking, and then he was, just kind of lifting his head up a little bit, not really staying in connection, being round to the bridle. Because if he would lower his neck a little bit, he would come more through the back and he would be in a better posture. But his posture wasn't quite what we wanted. And I said to Tammy, then you have to focus on energy. He's going to have to cover ground. And for her, of course, he's a gaited horse. So we don't use the word impulsion because he's in variations of a walk.
Right.
Tammy, it's flat walk, isn't it?
Right. That's
Saddle gait.
correct.
So he's in his regular walk, normal walk, like trot horses. But when he goes to what we call a saddle gait, then he's in the what they call, what Tennessee walkers call flat gait and flat walk. Explain that to them, Tammy. That's a variation of walk.
Right. Of course, all different gaited horses, their breed, they'll vary their footfall timing a little. Basically, a Tennessee walking horse, they have a walk like a trotting horse would do, a normal walk. But then when we bump up to what our flat walk saddle gait would be a working trot speed, it's just more energy in that walk. And it's usually about 5 to 7 miles per hour, the amount of speed and ground that it'll cover. And then our running walk would be equivalent to the extended trot with that. And that's got a little more overstride, a little more push out of the hindquarters and pull out of the shoulder, but it's still in the timing of a walk gait, a 4-beat walk gait. So we do not have the suspension like a trotting horse has in their 2-beat gait with that.
So that's the part that's really interesting. Like when I'm teaching Tammy, I use the word impulsion when she's loping because her horse has suspension in the lope. But I always talk to her, basically we're talking about energy, impulsion, but I'm not supposed to technically use that word because the walk and the saddle gait, which is a variation of the walk, that's the flat walk, technically doesn't have impulsion because there's always a foot on the ground. There is no suspension per se. So we talk about energy. I need activity. I need you to cover ground. Ground cover is the length of your strides and that you get somewhere quickly. That's one thing that we're having a little bit of a culture thing with Western dressage for new people coming in, that because we want our horses to look, and I'm going to, don't shoot the messenger, but I still use the old-fashioned word because I'm from the South. Started riding in the 70s, folks. That probably gives away my age. But here's the thing. We used to talk about horses being broke, and it wasn't a bad thing. We don't mean it in a bad way. It means that they are safe, and I could put my inexperienced husband on them, and I could offer the neighbor's child a ride, a lead line ride. It's like quiet horses that are mannerly, that are safe, that tie to the trailer and they load, like all the things that some of those other divisions don't do, who shall remain nameless. So, one of the things that's real important about all of this is that our horses are so, usable and broke, and that's very important to us, and that's part of this training system. So anyway, this part here is part of this. And so Tammy's saying that as we progressed through her warm-up at the Worlds, as we went through the warm-up, we were making a check mark, and especially with saddle horses, saddle gait horses with Tennessee walkers or any gaited horse, their regularity of rhythm, because they're judged by judges that are extremely familiar with walk, jog, lope horses, are looked at with, I think, really tight vision, because the judges are learning about their gaits. And so any irregularity at all of the footfall or a change in the footfall tempo or any deviation of it appears way more noticeable. And It is also supposed to be changes of gait in walk, jog, lope horses are supposed to be marked down, and they are, but I think that it's really more noticeable to judges in these breeds, and so they're looking to see, um, and so they get looked at really, really closely. So we're always looking at their purity of the gait, and it's amazing how those horses balance, which is their self carriage, and bend through the corners really affects their regularity, meaning, if their saddle gait deviates a little bit or changes. You're going to begin to see this in horses. It shows a lot in lope. You're going to see big changes and differences in horses' lopes, and some horses look a whole lot more supple, and some horses don't. And they look less supple turning, and maybe in the corners and things. And once you get onto this, it's fascinating to see the changes that come with your training, but also how much more skilled you are as you watch videotapes of people's rides, because maybe some of us are showing online, or if you're standing on the rail trying to learn more by watching other competitors is fascinating. So it's very interesting. We had a very it was a very, very busy Worlds. There were many horses there, and it was really fun to see all the different levels and all the different horses. And it is very inclusive. We had some beautiful mules, and tons of breeds, just tons. I didn't correctly get the count. I thought they told us 60 or more, but
I think I heard something similar because I watched some of the live feed. And I thought that was great too, like all the different breeds coming in and just watching all the different breeds and all the different ways they move. Yeah, it was amazing. I enjoyed that.
isn't it fun to see too, people's selection? There's all these different horses and then different tack. Like some people have, really English looking bets, like loose ring snaffles, and a Western headstall and a Western, maybe reins and everything, but really an English bit. And then you'll see somebody with something that looks like a Spanish curb, and Spanish looking clothes, Western saddle, of course. And then you'll see somebody that just comes in and kind of looks like maybe a really cool ranch rider, just a shirt and blue jeans and boots and hat, just like they jumped onto their horse out at the farm, at the ranch. And then you'll have somebody come in a real sparkly outfit and fine. It's all good. Part of it, the fun part is to watch the horses, watch the riders, look at the outfits. Super cool, very interesting. Everybody had a really good time. And
so Ida, I don't have any more questions in the chat, but I have a question.
Sure.
Pertaining like the training wheel, because I'm newer to Western dressage, like I'm an intro and basic. And so just like talking about energy, because I think that's like a comment, like myself and a lot of people I ride with in intro, like we get a lot of like needs more energy, like that comment I see a lot. So like exactly what are you looking for? And do you have any exercises that I could do to help with creating more energy?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. And that brings me around to a thought which I lost while I was talking to you. So thank you. You jogged my memory. I'm still really tired from Worlds. I'm sure Tammy is too. And I noticed tonight, I was like, oh, I lost it. I lost the thought there.
Oh, yes.
Energy. One of the things that I was mentioning was, and I'm coming around to your energy question, is that as people come into this division problem with energy, because they have a high focus on impulsion, and it's a little bit higher focus than our focus. They really want their horses to go forward and clearly actively covering ground. We want our horses to look calm and safe and have energy. But, calm and safe is important over energy, not, and especially frantic energy. But what happens to us is let's say we get somebody from a pleasure division that comes in, and they'll come in on some beautiful show horse, my goodness, and beautiful show clothes. And you'll see that they have a lot of ring experience, maybe in a flat ring, maybe a pleasure class. But we're trying to explain to them that working jog gets you from ranch to ranch. It gets you to town. It is not pleasure jog. And the judges have started writing, you're exhibiting pleasure jog to me. I appreciate that. You've spent a lot of time developing it. And some of these show divisions have very, very slow jogs, and they've slowed the horses to the point where the jog no longer has suspension. And jog is supposed to have suspension, and it does not have to track up. The hind leg step into the track of the front leg. It's not required, but it's rewarded. And the reason it is because if a horse doesn't track up, then its back tends to be stiff. And when its back stiff, then all of this stuff doesn't work as well. It's sort of like an unlubricated engine. It's inefficient. So when the back doesn't have much undulation because the horse doesn't track up, because it doesn't have enough energy, then it's not disallowed, but you don't get the highest marks. The horses that track up get higher marks. They're rewarded for it. So we're careful about how we'll tell people that, because they'll say, well, it doesn't say anywhere the horse has to track up. No, you're not forced to. But if you do, you get rewarded. You get higher scores. So then people are saying to me, well, I don't get it. I can't, if I speed up, I can't set the jog. And we say, well, that's why you're allowed to post until level 2, because by the time you get to level 2, you will have developed some collection, and your horse's back will be softer, and he will have been arching his back, and he'll be in the right posture, and he'll be round to the bridle, which means that the back will be supple, and then you're able to sit to it. And in the meantime, if you need to post, it's okay. The tough part about that is we're not really a posting division, and people don't teach posting very much. Most of the Western people that took up posting just stand up and sit down and do the best they can. It's dressage people or English people that know a lot about posting. And so it falls to a lot of us to talk to our Western riders about posting. One of the things about posting is that the longer you're up in the air, the longer the horse has time to stick its foot out before it hits the ground. If you sit down prematurely, or you sit down quick, or you only post very, very close to the saddle, quick and short posting, the horse puts its foot down prematurely. So when you want a horse to cover ground, when you post as high as you can, and you stay up there as long as you can, and you sit down gently, because sometimes in those Western saddles, if your balance is off or your saddle's too big for you in the back when you post up, but you go to sit down, you slip back in your saddle and you go up, down, fall back, up, down, fall back. And that means you're late going up again. So you'll see there's a ton of riders that we have seat savers behind us. I mean, just about every rider I've got riding has one. I have one. The seats are kind of big for us sometimes, and the seat saver keeps you from getting too far back on the horse. The reason that stock saddles sit back and have what we call a butt bucket, which is the back part is a dip, is because if you are going to stop a cow, you're going to rope a cow, then when that horse slides, you have to lean back, and you stick your feet out in front of you, and you lean back in a chair seat, and you lean back like crazy, and you throw your weight against the back of the saddle, because that cow is going to pull that saddle right up over your head if you don't. And there should be a back girth back there. Well, since we don't do this in Western dressage, the stock saddle built to do Western dressage, they still have a stock seat. And so that's there. And it means that you slip backwards sometimes when you post. So Get a seat saver in there if you've got one of those kind of saddles. There's nothing wrong with it. You can keep using your saddle. Just put a little seat saver in there, get yourself forward. And then when you post up, sit down slow, gently, post up. The longer you're up in the air, the longer the horse can go forward. The other thing which terrorizes people is we have always thought that the jog was slow. And to some extent, it's slower than trotting horses, okay? Because some trotting horses are 17 hands, so one stride is like 7, 9, 10 feet. They're huge, and maybe you're on a quarter horse and it has a smaller stride. So it probably is slower, probably covers less ground. But it doesn't mean that if you need a horse to cover ground, you may actually have to ask it to speed up a little bit, because if it was trained for pleasure showing, it was trained for pleasure jog, which is too slow for working jog. And people say to me, well, that isn't true. Cowboys jog slowly. I said, no, watch John Wayne. He stood up in the stirrup. His elbows went like this because he couldn't post and he couldn't sit down. When he's running after the bad guy, he cannot lope his horse all night. So what he did is he stood up, he had his elbows out like this. Just watch any John Wayne movie and you'll see his elbows flying. And the guy stands up in his stirrups and runs the horse in the trot, in the jog, because he's got to get somewhere and he can't lope it all day long. That's working jog. That's the jog that gets you to town, it gets you to ranch, and it requires a lot of energy. So if you focus on that, you can go faster, that you can post if you have to. We don't talk a lot about cross training either, but I've seen a lot of horses that I said to people, you need to set your horse's head, and it doesn't look like it gives to the bit. You may need to do some rope halter work to get it to give to its nose on the rope halter, and then you're going to have to play with the bit reins and get it to give to the bit. And if your horses lunge, you might want to consider lunging them in side rein. And we're not talking lunging 20 or 30 minutes a day. Lunging a horse to help it get its balance without a rider and get used to some kind of connection in the bits. And you can only lunge a horse in some kind of an English snaffle. You can't lunge them in a curb. It's dangerous. So you will have to put some kind of an English snaffle in. But that will sometimes help you get a horse in balance, and particularly a horse that's come from some other division that's really been out of balance and not taking connection and having trouble with the hand. And you have to see, that's something that you get a professional to help you with, but you can do that. And it's only like, you only lunge a horse here. The most we ever lunge a horse on my property is 12 minutes ever. And we don't lunge horses more than 12 minutes, 6 one way, 6 the other. They don't. You don't lunge horses very long. But sometimes horses coming in from other divisions really, really need to learn head setting. And it's one of the safest, easiest ways for horses to get their balance without our weight interfering. Riders are so handy. So this helps a horse get used to a snaffle bit, get used to the connection with the side reins, get its own balance. And you can use verbal cues, which help you when you get on, because luckily here we can say walk, jog, lope to them. So when we're in the ring and we're trying to get the transition, we can actually speak to them and give them the verbal aid too. Could be helpful. So does that give you enough ideas about getting forward? Because I'm thinking that it's probably the jog that's one of the biggest energy problems, Dana.
Yeah. And it does, because now I have a mindset of like what that now looks like.
Yes. Now in the walk, you have 2 options. One is alternating leg aids that go left, right, left, right, left, right. But the other set of leg aids that can be used in the walk, which is really more effective, is both legs together. So pushing walk, 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 and they push on both hind legs at the same time. One of the reasons that dressage riders use both legs together almost 90% of the time, with the exception of the extended walk, is because it keeps your hips together, so that, because when you use alternating leg aids, your seat bones follow and you sway back and forth on the horse, and you can't drive fast enough. So when you need to speed a horse up, so collected walk and medium walk, most of the riders use both legs together, walk, walk, walk. Meanwhile, you take a little soft whip, not a very stiff one, and a little tap across the gaskin, whack around the back of the horse. At the moment that the hind leg is the furthest back, you take a little flippy whip, like a cut off soft lunge whip or a flex whip. Flex whips are very, very soft. A little whip that kind of is flexy and kind of floppy, and it makes more noise than it makes sting. And you wrap it around his gasket and go whack. Give him a little whack tap back there. Tell him to walk on, walk on. And you teach him that when you tell him walk on, you're going to expect him to go. And then you're there with the leg, like go, go, go. And if they're good, you're finger patting them. You got your reins and you can finger pat them on the neck and good boy, every time they go and go. And they may throw their head up, but meanwhile, you've given them the aid, like walk on. And if they show more energy, you reward them. You don't touch the bit, and you'll worry about head setting them later after they've gone forward. But those are the two easiest ways to get horses forward and more active. And people are afraid of actually speeding up the tempo because they're thinking that it's going to get short. And it does occasionally with some horses. But most of the time in the jog, because you elongate the height of the posting, that allows the horse to stretch the legs so it doesn't become like a sewing machine step. And the walk, you can look down in the dirt and look at your own tracks and see if the steps get longer, and you can kind of tell. And at some point when they get quicker, you go, well, they're getting shorter. But a lot of times you can look down and say, no, I sped them up just a little bit and I got a little more energy. And you're in the walk, you're gauging it by the tracking of what you can see in the dirt. And if there's nobody there yourself, you just walk in a place where there's no tracks. Hopefully there's someplace dragged or in the muddy dooryard or, and you look down and you say, okay, just tracked up, or no, he overtracked. That's good. And, you can help yourself that way. And if you've got your pivots, you're looking on your pivots. I use my pivot almost every day because there's nobody here to look at me. I have to, I get down and I look at my tape. And even like if I'm doing flying changes and I can't wait until tomorrow to see if they were all okay, then I go do a set of changes and I pull up and I reach down, I pick up the camera, look at it. The horse is really good. She's like, is she going to look at the camera now? I'm going to get a cookie. And I'll look and see if the changes were all clean and put the camera back in the pivot and go back out again. Because, we all have to do this if we're training ourselves. If there's no one to look, or we don't have somebody. So looking. So kind of cool. Getting forward is a challenge, and if you're getting there, then you're doing the right thing, because this is all connected.
Yeah, no, that was a great explanation.
I see that we're past time, but I have plenty of time, but I don't want to keep you all because I know you're tired. But if there's more questions, we'll go over them. But otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. How are we doing on the chat there, Dina?
Yeah, I don't have any questions in the chat. I did have Erica earlier, I think she signed off already, said since it will be discussed next time, she wanted to discuss the breed biomechanics. I have a lot of confusion about my Arab.
Oh, wow. Hopefully she'll come back on and she'll produce a picture for us. Wouldn't that be great? If we
I can always ask. I can send an email if that would help.
Well, if that's what she wants to talk about, we definitely should see a little picture.
Yeah, so I'll send an email because I think she already signed off for tonight.
Okay, that'd be fun. Well, the other thing is we hope to get a few pictures of horses moving at these different levels so that we can kind of see, hey, this is what this intro horse looked like, and this is what this one looked like, and just talk about how cool they are and how different they are, and in what way they're all super cool and acceptable and working hard. So that'd be fun.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Did anybody else have any other questions?
Again, Well, I'm glad you are all here. Thank you for coming. Spread the word. Tammy, thanks for being here. Dana, thank you for doing this. And I really appreciate all of you. If you have any other questions, save them for next time or message me personally. It's fine. I'll get back to any of you anytime. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. And thanks, Dana and Tammy, for doing all of this and getting it going.
Oh, thank
And
you, Ida. That was just a great explanation of the training wheel. That was really helpful. Yeah, I was like in trance. I was like, this is also amazing.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you so much, Ida. And
You're welcome.
Dana, for you moderating this. You guys are just doing an amazing job. That's probably the best explanation I've ever heard of that.